life aspires is of the spirit, an expansion of sympathy, of love, of the awareness that comes from sensing God's presence everywhere. We'll now practice the affirmation together, first repeating loudly, awakening your conscious mind, your subconscious mind. I feel myself
I feel myself
in the flowing brooks,
in the flowing brooks,
in the flight of birds,
in the flight of birds,
in the raging wind,
in the raging wind,
upon the mountains,
upon the mountains,
in the gentle dance
in the gentle dance
of flowers in a breeze,
of flowers in a breeze,
renouncing my little
renouncing my little
egoic self.
egoic self.
I expand
I expand
with my great soul self
with my great soul self
everywhere.
everywhere.
Now in a speaking voice to awaken the conscious mind, I feel myself
I feel myself
in the flowing brooks,
in the flowing brooks,
in the flight of birds,
flight of birds,
in the raging wind,
in the raging wind,
upon the mountains,
upon the mountains,
in the gentle dance
in the gentle dance
of flowers in a breeze,
flowers in a breeze,
renouncing my little
renouncing my little
egoic self.
egoic self.
I expand
I expand
with my great soul self
with my great soul self
everywhere.
everywhere.
And now in a whisper, I feel myself
I feel myself
in the flowing brooks,
in the flowing brooks,
in the flight of birds,
flight of birds,
in the raging wind,
the raging
upon the mountains,
ponds,
in the gentle dance
the gentle dance
of flowers in a breeze, renouncing my little egoic self.
renouncing my little egoic self.
I expand with my great soul self
I expand with my great soul self
everywhere. Now repeating after me silently, awakening your superconscious, focusing at the point between the eyebrows. Take each word, each phrase inwardly more and more. I feel myself in the flowing brooks, in the flight of birds, in the raging wind upon the mountains, in the gentle dance of flowers in a breeze, renouncing my little egoic self. I expand with my great soul self everywhere. And now listening to this prayer, you can feel it in your heart. Beloved Spirit, in all that is, help me in my own nothingness to find myself one with all that is. Om. We'll now have our reading from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. And week 32 is Does God Hide the Truth? It's a good question. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In last week's reading, we saw that the great masters themselves counsel discretion in the dissemination of truth. The counter-argument is sometimes made, but the Lord doesn't hide. He reveals his beauty in the sunsets, his tender sympathy in the rain, his wrath in the thunder, his restless energy in the brooks, his power in the sunlight. There are exoteric truths, and there are also esoteric truths. There is that which is revealed impersonally and left up to us to interpret, such as the thunder and our perception of it as divine wrath, the rain, and our perception of it as God's sympathy. But behind even God's most open expressions, there lies impenetrable mystery. The wind blows where it wills, said Jesus in chapter 3 of the Gospel of St. John. You hear the sound of it, but you do not know where it comes from or where it is going. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. And Sri Krishna says in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, by me the whole vast universe of things is spread abroad. By me the unmanifest. In me are all existences contained, not I in them. God's hidden reality cannot be understood by the reasoning faculty. India's Sankhya philosophy states frankly, Ishwar Ashida, God is not provable. A willingness to seek the underlying reality behind appearances is essential for those who would know God. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Oh.
What a great topic. I'm just going to start with Whispers from Eternity. And this is by Paramhansa Yogananda. It's a prayer demand. This is to open my inner eye. Open my inner eye, O fountain of light, that I may behold thee in the dance of myriad-hued atoms. Burst open the doors of space, that I may see thee behind the swirling mists of material illusion. Behind thy walls of brilliant cosmic rays, thou art hiding. Open every portal in nature, that I may see thee everywhere. Om Shanti Shanti. You know, it's interesting that God created Google search engines. It's such a powerful thing to be able to find truth in everything. We make a statement and we go, I'm going to prove that. So you get onto Google and you can find justification in everything and every belief, everything that you've spoken about. And it's so interesting. And then you stand behind that truth, don't we? You know, it's such a cool thing. I mean, even now they have lessons in how to optimize your search using and, using or, expanding individual words with synonyms and all sorts of stuff to get to the crux of your truth. You know, it's kind of an interesting thing, isn't it? So of course, I mean, obviously that's truth if we find it on Google and
AI finds.
and even AI now, we just punch it into AI and they spit it out and it's got to be truth for sure. So the fact that, you know, it's getting harder and harder to find truth, or is it easier and easier to find truth? And I think there's a clear distinction. And, you know, in reality, are we really actually really willing and able to hear truth and the truth? So it's kind of a question you need to ask yourself. You know, if you look at history over time and people say, oh, the truth needs to be told, you know, so that we can heal and move forward and come on. And then, of course, there's things that have been hidden. And ultimately, it's like one person or one side of the story telling one thing, but that's not the reality of it, because the person that's been dealt the hard blow or they've given the hard blow then says, well, this was what actually happened, and that needs to be brought out, and we need to share truth, and we need to do this. Now, if you've suffered an atrocity or you've suffered hard times, are you willing to hear that you created it if you believe in the karmic laws? And I think that's a really important thing for us to understand, that when we come into this world, we're given all realities and we outwardly seek them. And it's an interesting concept, isn't it? But underlying all those realities are people, who have been subject to genocide. Are they able to hear that collectively or individually they came in to learn a lesson, and that truth is a part of the reality that they created? And of course, would you, as another being or another human, would you put that in someone's face who's not quite really willing to listen or understand? Um, so we tread this fine line, don't we, in the reality of life? We tread this fine line of what is truth and whether it's hidden or how does it come about. Um, last week we delved into talking about offering all our actions up to God and being channels of God. And it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because the truth of that is that we are here, but we can open up and become a channel of truth, if you like, or a channel of God to move forward in how we do things. And then this week I was listening to a talk from Swami, and actually it wasn't, it was a quote from Yogananda, and he actually said, rather than saying that I'm busy doing God's work, he said, the quote that he talked about was saying that you shouldn't actually say that you're busy. You should actually say that you're thankful. Change the word to busy, being thankful um, for having or God giving you the opportunity to serve. And it flips a perspective, doesn't it? It's always about, well, where is it? And what we're talking about here really is reasoning. If we replace most of the chat that I've just talked about with the reasoning behind something rather than the truth, we can always, ultimately, the devil, you can reason the reality of the devil. You can reason the reality of hardship. You can reason where it comes from. Swami talked about writing books, and he said he had great joy talking about the fact that in a storyline, you always had to bring in the opposing force to make the story interesting. And he talked about that, and he said that, in this realm that this dream that we've been brought into, even that, imagine going down the street or the local pub and saying, guys, you're all a dream. I don't know why you're all drinking. That beer doesn't even exist. The reality of that wouldn't even come into play. But in what we're talking about here is that the truth is different than reality. And that's the story behind the affirmation and the story behind um, the the our life story is that most of the time, from the minute we're created into this reality, and that becomes our story, and we believe that it's true, and all the circumstances that come about because we're inward, but we always can't get there. In a talk from Swami, he talked about the fact that there's been studies that have done around all levels of from poverty through to the rich, and every single person that replies to what would make you happy is always just something else. There's always something else out of the reach of being made happy. Why? Because we're seeking it outwards, and it's a story of um, the mother of Krishna trying to
Yashoda.
tie them up and contain them. But every time she pulled a piece of string out, it was just that short. She pulled longer ones out and tried to tie. And it's a story of our life. So it's every single part of us in an outward motion. There's always like that little part of not quite reaching what we need to do. Why? Because we're reaching outwards. And we're constantly coming into that reality of almost there, almost there. I can see it. And you think about it, that is that expression. We're seeing that mirror in front of us. So behind that sunlight or that beautiful rainbow, we can say, oh, well, that's a beautiful rainbow. It's, something's going to happen to us. It's a beautiful omen. We do it all the time.
Yesterday and today.
And with this weather, we get lots of rainbows. Um, but instead of looking at nature and saying, well, God, I know God's behind nature, that's still an outward expression. We need to go inward. We start looking at that inward expression and finding truth in all things. And then we start seeing that ultimately we can heal, we can change, we individually can do something about our circumstances, or we're grateful for the circumstances that we're given within us. And it's kind of a interesting thing when you think about the realities of this world, and we see it all the time. We always say that someone's projecting. I love hearing stories of Devi saying, you did this, and your behavior was this, and you did this. And she said, you should always add just like me, because often what you're talking about is that reflection of your reality that you've created. So if that is the truth in relation to the reality that we create and the world that we're living in, the existence of all the things that we've done, we have a great opportunity, don't we? Because there's a little secret behind all of that, is that if we go inward and seek truth inwardly, that then reflects our outward um, expression as well. And, I think there was when lightning flashes, and Yogananda went completely inward singing When Lightning Flashes. And he was dancing, he was with a group of people, and Divine Mother came through him. And then the minute he came out of that, he just said to everyone, all I see is light. All I see is this reality. And that's kind of a beautiful thing, isn't it? The more we go inward and the more we see and expand the expressions of truth, of God, the more then that takes the shade out of the world and the reality that we're living in. It doesn't mean that we don't have to deal with the things that we do, but inwardly we're dealing with the truth behind all those things. And those truths could be as physical as the truth is that, yes, going to the dentist and getting a tooth pulled out is going to hurt, as Swami experimented with. But he said, but it's only temporary. And he knows that he can actually deal with those things. And then, of course, on top of those amazing things that we can go inward and then project out and learn these lessons, we also have a guru. And there's this amazing comment that was made by Swami um, in one of his talks, was that he said, this journey is not an easy journey. This is a hard journey. We have to know that we need to dig deep and go on this journey. But he also said that as hard as that journey is, it's just as hard for these great masters to come down to our level. And if you just think about that from a moment, that's incredible. They have to work just as hard as we do to meet them at their level, as they do have to come down to our level. And it shows you the unconditional love, and probably it's really hard for us to even comprehend that in its truest form, the effort and the love and unconditional love of reality. So we've got truth behind and inward that we can now start projecting out, but we also have this love that these great masters will go over every crag, every ocean, till every one of us is free. We just need to be open and inward and feel and express that in the reality of what we are, and see the truth behind this delusion that we're in. And it's worth the battle. There's not one saint that has found God that ever said that it wasn't those hard times weren't worth it. And it's one of those amazing journeys of that. And a great example of that was Swami had a deviated septum, and it was done through he said, no fault of his own. He was playing tennis, his ego got in the road, and he tried to do a shot because he was playing someone of lesser skill, if you like, and then he bumped his nose, broke his nose. They fixed it, but didn't fix the deviated septum. So we went to Yogananda, because Yogananda said that really anything along the center line of our being we should not interfere with. So he asked him, and Yogananda said, yeah, definitely, let's get that fixed. And he went, so he had the blessing. He went to Yogananda to get that blessing. And then he had the surgery. And I don't know if anyone's had any nasal surgery, but it is absolutely incredibly painful when they pack. You can just look at my nose, I've had it a couple of times. They pack cotton wool or gauze up in to repair the septum. And he had that done. And I think twice or three times the
Same
wadding or
day.
the packing in the same day kept falling out. So it was relatively raw, relatively hard. And he kept going back to the same doctor, and the doctor kept pushing the gauze back in. And he goes, the doctor said to him, does that hurt? He goes, well, no, why should it? And he said, well, that is one of the most painful things that you'll experience. And I'll put my hand up to say, yeah, I can believe it is. My description would be like it's everything in your whole head is caving in. And he went through that three times in one day, and the doctor was just speechless. He didn't know what to do. But the story behind that really is that the truth is that he had a journey that he needed to go on, and he went to his guru to seek advice. And then his guys, the guru protected him on that journey. There was no other explanation of why he did not have the same outward experiences that he was in. And so I'm going to leave you with that little story about, the truth. And the truth really is that, yeah, we can see the mirrors of truth out there, but truth ultimately is an inward experience. And then when we can self-realize, then we can see the world in a different way.
Thank you. Just a story that comes to mind about our part in this world as Leela. I like that word on this path because Leela is a bit playful. It's the divine play,
Mm.
is what it means, and it demonstrates the kind of childlike joy and entertainment and educational experience that we all can have if we look at it as such. And one of the things that you notice in the thread of those stories is that taking a step back to become the observer and to be more with God through all the experiences so that you can look at them with a sense of childlike joy and wonder and be like, oh, Divine Mother, that's what you have to show me today. This is the lesson. And what a experience of humility to be truly self-aware, stepping outside of the ego to expand your sense of self so you can perceive truth. And one of the things I like to think about a lot when this topic comes up is the observer effect, which is known in quantum physics. So, just by nature of you, as in you, the little self, the ego, being there and observing, you have an inherent bias into the perceived experience of what cause and effect you perceive. Because we're each the center of our own reality and we are a conscious being, we're constantly interacting with Leela. Everything that's going on inside of us becomes the perceived experience around us. But remember, it's a personalized lesson plan. So everything that you do experience in the day is that act of love from Divine Mother for you to learn something. However, how often do we use instead the ego's perception to say, you did this, they made me feel, this is happening, and I hate it, instead of, ah, what a Leela. What am I supposed to learn here? Ah, yes, how do I keep my inner peace? Ah, yes, how do I hold true joy? Ah, yes, how do I have love, compassion, and empathy in this moment? And how often do we choose that greater truth and the true reality of union, of yoga? And instead, we focus on the ups, the downs, the ins and outs. And we get drawn here and there by that proverbial carrot. And while Nara was sharing about that, it reminded me of that really important truth. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. Because often we need to remind ourselves to hit pause And one of you had a lovely chat with yesterday about a moment in life where, perhaps due to our age in this Leela, we realize we need to check where we are in life. Are we going in the direction we meant? Are we making that choice consciously to put God first? And what an important question that is. But to be able to perceive it, we must step out of that little ego that's so busy creating its narrative that it doesn't see clearly. And the only way to see clearly, we know from Patanjali's sutras, is to still the heart, the vrittis, because if we don't do that, we're pulled into the lila. We need to be still and observe to be able to perceive truth. So every time you let go of an attachment, you say, ah, this this lesson, Divine Mother, thank you. Or you meet karma with a raised energy like Swamiji did when he stepped out of pain. And he expanded the moment and he said, this won't bother me tomorrow. Why don't I just not let it bother me now? And hitting that reset button whenever you can. The other thing that just came to my mind while Nara was sharing is the study of how people who meditate can change the lila. And last week, Devi was sharing before her and Jyotish went on their trip abroad. So every year around August, in 2 days is Jyotish's birthday as well as Anne's in our Sangha. And they always go to Assisi for his birthday. Then they stay there for a month, do programs, and go to India for 3 months. Then they come back to the US. And every time around this part of the season, they give their last Sunday service after Spiritual Renewal Week. So Devi was sharing a really important message to everyone, which if you haven't seen it, it's good to listen to that talk. It's just on the YouTube of their channel, or Ananda. And she said, don't forget how much one person who is living in truth can change the world. Imagine how much each of us trying to live consciously in truth can change the world together. So all of us are doing that when we meditate, when we live truth, when we hold joy, when we hold space for compassion for others. And getting back to this study, there was a group of meditators in the very small state in the United States of America's lovely location called Rhode Island. And because it's such a small state, they could have a very small sample size of meditators create a significant change, which those of you who remember studying about that, that's your little sample size N. So they had a little group of meditators at the beginning of the year, and their job was to meditate daily, and then they were going to track the cause and effect of that group on Rhode Island's health, public health things like violence, reported violence and crime, weather, and um, I think just health outcomes was another. And so, as we all know, because I'm obviously sharing this for a purpose, those outcomes were measured significantly improved by that group of meditators' presence in the state. Crime had gone down, weather had improved that year, people's health outcomes had improved. So that's the power of a small group of people striving for truth. So thank you. And we'll now play some music, and then we'll stay around for anyone who wishes to share.